Oh, what a busy day. I'm really exhausted, really tired. And in fact, I'm feeling thirsty too. Let me get a sip of water. Hey, how are you? I just didn't pay attention to the fact that, while carrying this bottle of water, I've just walked into your amazing domain. I mean, the place where I meet you all the time. I mean, each and every time. So, this is the place that I feel the best, because I get an opportunity to meet you guys, to talk with you, to discuss with you, and to share lots and lots of things with you, right? And all these kinds of amazing things we get on one single platform, that is PW. So once again, welcome back to this amazing platform that is PW. This is me, Kunal, your mentor, your guide, and your friend for social science. And together we are going to do something amazing again today, right? Now you must be wondering what I'm doing with this bottle of water. Well, to be very honest, this is one thing that I look for, very anxiously when I feel thirsty. And this is one thing that you also must be looking for whenever you feel thirsty. Now, I might get some real good alternatives in the comment section. I mean, I may find some answers in the comment section telling, no, sir, we do not look out for water. We look out for something that gives us wings, right? But however, the bitter truth lies in the fact that when we are really thirsty, we look out for one resource, that is water, right? And that is what sustains a lot of life forms on the earth, and it's one of the most essential factors that are required for a healthy and a nice living. Because when you talk about water, we are talking about pure and clean drinking water, not just any kind of water, right? Because pure and clean drinking water is very much essential for a very good health, for a very good survival, because water is present in abundance in the oceans and seas. But the question arises that are we able to use that water? The answer is no, because we cannot use that water for drinking purposes. Definitely we do have technology to purify it, but that is pretty much expensive, and that water is again not that much fit for drinking or consumption purposes. Hence we need pure and clean drinking water, safe drinking water, so that our needs are managed, right? So you must be wondering that why I'm talking about water everywhere, right? So the basic fact is, all our discussion for the day revolves around this topic, that is water, right? So very quickly, let's begin with the day. Let's begin by having a sip of water. In the meanwhile, get your water bottle and I'll get mine, and together we are going to have this amazing time, right? Let's get started. Okay, so basically when you're talking about the water resources, let's have a quick insight into some of mind-blowing facts and amazing facts. Let's get started. So I hope this paragraph might be very familiar with you guys, because you must have seen that somewhere, isn't it? So if you have seen this paragraph somewhere, do let me know where have you seen this paragraph. Come on, comment section is open for you all, and you just need to pour in your comments. Okay, so let's talk about a quick fire facts about water. Number one, 96.5% of the total volume of world's water is estimated to exist as oceans, and only 2.5% exists in the form of fresh water. And this is that percentage that we use for multiple consumption needs, right? So let's just pen it down. 96.5% of total water that is present in the oceans, and only 2.5% is present in the form of fresh water. Now, if I talk about out of this 2.5%, nearly 70% of this fresh water is present in the form of ice sheets and glaciers, that is in the frozen form, that too in Antarctica, Greenland, and the mountainous regions of the world. A little less than 30% is stored as groundwater. Now, what is groundwater? Basically, the water that is found beneath the layers of soil. Basically, a water that you take out with the help of hand pump, or you can use at times tube wells for taking out the water that is present inside the ground, or at times you also dig out wells to take out that water, right? So basically, that groundwater is again a very important source of fresh water resources. Now, apart from that, if we talk about, India receives nearly 4% of global precipitation. Global precipitation means we are talking about the rainfall here. Okay, we are talking about the rainfall here. So, out of the total rainfall that occurs in the world, India receives 4% out of it. Moreover, it ranks 133 in world in terms of water availability. So if we take out a ranking of the countries with respect to the water available in the countries, India's rank stands out to be 133 per person per annum, right? Now, the total renewable water resources of India are estimated at 1897 square kilometer per annum. That is the amount of water resources that get recharged or that are renewable in nature. And it is predicted that by 2025, large parts of India will join the countries that are facing water scarcity. That means the shortage of water resources. And this is really something that we need to think upon, right? Because we are very careless. If we talk about water conservation, when it comes to water conservation, we hardly pay attention to the volume of water we waste on a daily basis. For example, the very common examples, they start right in our houses itself, right in our homes itself, isn't it? So especially when you are going to take the shower, we all love to take shower, right? However, there are few who are really scared of taking showers, especially in the winters. But believe me, even in the winters, you can do that daring to take a shower for, just 5 to 7 minutes. At least you will feel very fresh throughout the day. Because, once you take shower in the morning, you feel very fresh throughout the day, very energetic throughout the day. And that is the key to lots of things, right? Because when your mind and body, they both feel fresh, you are more energetic, your efforts will be multifold, right? But if you are the guy who hasn't taken shower, who's too lazy to get out of bed, you will carry that same lazy energy throughout the day. And that at last is going to ruin your day, right? So there are two different perspectives of hitting out the day. So that's how it goes about. Okay, now moving on further, if I talk about that water scarcity, right? There are multiple factors that lead to it. Number one, if we see that while taking shower, at times we take shower for 15 to 20 minutes. Unnecessarily we waste the water, right? At times you are just, you're just woken up and you are doing your daily routines. You are just brushing your teeth. At times we just leave the tap water open because we are too lazy to close it. We are we just have a mindset. In seconds, I'm just going to, finish up brushing my teeth. So it's very simple. Let's let the water flow for a few seconds. What's going to harm? But just imagine like you are thinking, in the same way there are multiple people who are thinking the same way. And in this case, if you just add up the volume of water which each one of might have wasted, that adds to a considerable volume of water being lost, right? Water being wasted, to be very precise, right? Okay, so let's go on further. So here you can see a picture that is water everywhere, not a drop to drink. After a heavy downpour, a boy is collecting drinking water in Kolkata. So you can see that at times the water availability is huge in terms of quantity, but the quality of water is not available. Because if for a water to be a resource, it's very important that quality and quantity both should be adequate, right? So for anything to be a resource, it's very, very important the quality of the particular resource and quantity of the resource should be very adequate. So it should suffice the needs of the people in both the aspects. It should not be this way, like the quantity is available in sufficient amount, but the quantity is not there, or the quantity is there or quality is not there. So both ways it cannot be possible. So it's very important that the kind of resource that is available in the environment should be sufficient both in terms of quality as well as in terms of quantity, right? So life in the city and the adjacent districts was paralyzed because of incessant overnight rain. Okay, so that flooded the area. So especially when you see the flood waters, right? The flood waters are not consumable in nature. Whenever you see that the rivers are overflowing here and there. So the biggest problem is the flood water is not consumable in nature, as well as it it actually causes a large scale devastation in the areas that it floods. So basically, we at times have a good amount of quantity of water, but what is missing is quality of water, right? So in the same time, that in that case the water cannot be called as a resource. Now moving on further, there is a question that is often asked, that what is water stress? What is water stress? So there is a Swedish scientist, Falkenmark, who has basically outlined that what is a water stress. It basically occurs when water availability is between 1000 and 1600 cubic meter per person per year. Right, so basically it's a kind of situation when the water availability is very scarce, people are not getting the sufficient amount of water, and basically when the water availability lies between 1000 and 600 cubic meter per person per year, such a kind of situation is called as water stress. So as a result of water stress, when people are not getting sufficient amount of water, they are not when they are not when they don't have access to clean and safe drinking water, it is indirectly going to impact their health and the overall performance. And also when an individual is not able to perform up to the highest potential levels, that is also going to affect economically, because a healthy individual will always perform better in whatever task entrusted to the person. But if we talk about an individual who is not well, who is all time sick, that person will never be able to give his 100%, right? So let's talk about it. So water scarcity, when we talk about the water scarcity, we always have two aspects. Okay, number one, we have the quantitative aspect, and second, we have the qualitative aspect. When we talk about the quantity, that means the water is available in sufficient amount. But when you talk about quality, the second most important aspect, we also need to check that the whatever amount of water is available, is it fit for consumption, is it fit for drinking? So when you talk about water scarcity, that may be an outcome of large and growing population, right? Very important point. Number one, when we talk about large population, a large population will always have larger needs. For example, the two basic demands are number one, sufficient amount of food, and second is clean and safe drinking water. So that will always be an ever increasing demand with the kind of rate the population is increasing. And as we all know that India's population is growing at a considerable amount of pace, and over the years it has actually boomed. There has been a population boom in India, right? So this growing population is ultimately increasing the pressure upon the land, as well as the demands of the people are also increasing, because you definitely need clean and safe drinking water and a sufficient amount of food for feeding the ever increasing population. So that is again one of the more important factors for water scarcity, as it leads to unequal access of the water resources. Now for example, let's understand in a very layman language. Suppose if there are 10 people in an area and the amount of water available is sufficient to quench the thirst of those 10 people, then it's perfectly fine. But if the people are 30, okay, if the people increase, if the population of the area increase to 30 people, 30 in number, and the amount of water available is only sufficient for 10 people, then obviously it will lead to a situation of water scarcity, because all 30 of them now want the water resources, but water is only available for 10 people. So as a result, none of them are going to have equal access to the water. Maybe someone who is very powerful among them, maybe he will be able to get more water, fetch more water, or purchase some from the outside sources, but all of them will never have an equal access to water, and that is what produces a situation of water scarcity, right? Now moving on further, a large population means more water, not only for domestic usage but also to produce food. As I told that there are two major demands that are going to grow, that is number one, food demand, and second is clean and safe drinking water. Now in order to grow more food, definitely you need water for irrigation purposes, then only you are going to expand your crop and cultivation. For that also water is required in huge amounts. Now hence, to facilitate higher food grain production, water resources are being overexploited, right? So as a result, especially when there are no monsoons in the country and the season is pretty dry, at that time also agriculture is expanding at by leaps and bounds every day. So for this expanding of agriculture, definitely you need a good amount of water resource, a good amount of irrigation. As a result, the underground water resources are being overexploited. Because if you talk about the tubewells or wells, they are actually extracting water from the underground sources. Whatever underground water is present, they are actually over exploiting it. And nowadays, if you see that, I'll give you a very good example. Like if you go to Rajasthan, once I was there in Jaipur, I came across a very interesting rule there, that you guys are not allowed, basically you people are not allowed to put up lot of submersible pumps in the area. Because what happens when everyone tries to get more and more water, and when lots of submersible pumps are placed in an area, each one of them will try to extract more and more water. Ultimately that makes the water table go much down, right? And as a result, when water table goes down, it becomes very difficult to extract water from the underground sources, right? So there is a very fine rule that you are not supposed to put in lots and lots of submersible pumps in a certain area, because this is what is happening. Everyone wants a private water supply, isn't it? No one is dependent upon government for the same, because government's water supply at times that is not very regular, it is very erratic. And apart from that, it happens that the government water, whatever the government is supplying the water, at times it is not clean, right? So these are the different types of concerns that people always want to avoid. So the better choice is, why not to install a submersible pump so that they can pump out the underground water. And as a result, the same mentality goes on in minds of several people, 1,000 people. And when people, all of them, they install these kinds of pumps, it ultimately puts pressure on the land and also the underground water resources, creating a problem of water scarcity. And this problem becomes more acute, especially in the summer season, the peak summers in India, right? When everyone wants water. Water is the main source of energy at that time. So that particular point of time, most of the people, they try to, put on the submersible pump so that their water needs are maintained. and as a result you might have often heard in the news channels that the water table has gone down in certain area. That means they have to dig much deeper in order to extract the water resources. Now these kinds of problems are becoming very common, very common in India. In the recent times, if I talk about 2-3 years back, there was a news that Chennai has run out of water. Chennai being such a big city has run out of water, and to be very precise, the problem of water scarcity is very much prevalent in the state of Tamil Nadu, right? And if you know that Tamil Nadu was the first state who made rooftop water harvesting very compulsory. In the same way, if you talk about northeastern states of India, precisely Meghalaya has one of the two, Meghalaya houses two world's wettest places, Mawsynram and Cherrapunji. Despite that, Meghalaya has a problem of potable water, that is water that is fit for drinking, right? The reason being they are not able to store and harvest the rainwater very properly. So that is how the things that affect the water scarcity. Okay, so let's talk about more. So if we talk about after independence, India witnessed intensive industrialization and urbanization. If you talk about the first 2 to 3 5-year plans that Indian government rolled out, the first 5-year plans, they focused on development of Indian agriculture. Then the next 5-year plans, they focused on industrialization. And then we talk about Green Revolution. Green Revolution was a massive scale movement to make India very much self-sufficient in food grain production. But owing to this kind of production, or owing to this kind of revolution, there were huge quantities of agricultural inputs required, and water was one among them, right? So we can say that the water resources were overexploited owing to these schemes. And India has rapidly progressed in terms of industries as well as urban towns and urban cities. And India's population has been on the rise ever since a decade, and even more than that, right? So as we see that multiple factors have come into play to make this water scarcity problem all the more disastrous, right? So creating vast opportunities for us today, large industrial houses as commonplace and the industrial units of many MNCs. So we see that since 1991 there were many multinational companies or corporations that started setting up their bases in India. Now these multinational companies, basically they do production on a very large scale, on a very massive scale. As a result, we see that their water usage and water requirements are huge, and somewhere or the other, since they are providing a huge amount of production, huge amount of employment, it's very normal on the government's part to allow such companies to overexploit the water resources. But the problem is being faced by the common people, the common man who is living in that certain area, right? So the ever increasing number of industries made matters worse by exerting pressure on existing freshwater resources. So we can write this way. Putting pressure on freshwater resources. Okay. So industries, apart from being heavy users of water, they require power to run them. Very simple. If we talk about hydroelectric power, so most of the industries, they require the hydroelectric power as well. So if we talk about India's power needs, 22% of the India's power needs are met by the production of hydroelectric power, right? So most of this energy comes from the hydroelectric power. Now what is hydroelectric power? Basically we built dams or the multi-purpose projects, and these dams are used to store the water. Using that water we are generating power or the electricity. So that is called as hydropower or hydroelectricity. 22% of the total electricity produced in India comes from hydropower. However, we are not using it very extensively because still our India is more dependent upon thermal power resources or the energy generated by burning of coal, right? So basically we have mostly our power needs are met by the thermal production, but very soon we are running out of the coal reserves. As a result, we may be switching on to the hydropower in a more extensive fashion, right? So at present we have 22% that is generated from hydropower, right? Okay, so let us consider another situation where water is available to meet the needs of the people, but still the area is suffering water scarcity. That simply means that quantity of water is available, but quality of water is not available. Now, this scarcity may be due to bad quality of water. So at times you talk about there has been a very much growing concern that there is ample amount of water to meet the needs of people, but much of it is polluted by domestic and industrial waste. So water pollution is a huge concern when it talks about, when we talk about the quality of water. Let's take a very good example of river Yamuna in Delhi, right? River Yamuna in Delhi is very much polluted. So however, many Delhites depend upon the river for its water needs. So basically what do the water department does? Water works people. So they generally take out the kind of water from Yamuna, they purify it through multiple cycles, and then they try to supply it to the people. But still, if we talk about the purity of the river, that is no more maintained, because it is being interrupted by the polluted water that comes out from the different industries, the different industrial effluents that have been polluting river Yamuna, right? However, there have been certain projects taken up by the different governments whoever have come to rule Delhi, but hardly anything has happened on ground. So if you still pass by Yamuna river, you will see that white foam floating on the river surface, and that images are very much common on the web, across the web, on the YouTube as well. So that is something that's a reality check that needs to tell us that the kind of treatment we are doing with the water bodies, that are actually we are paying that back. In very simple terms, we ourselves are depleting our water resources. So basically, the different kinds of chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers used in agriculture, so when they're released without being treated properly into the river water, they actually make the river water polluted. And river water is a very major source of fresh water. So whatever water is available to us, we are also depleting that, we are also depleting that, we are also deteriorating the quality of that water available. So as a result, it's very common that we will be pushed into extreme water scarcity situations very soon, if we still do not try to put up ceiling on the kind of negative factors we are operating at present. So that is the need of the hour, that we need to understand that quality of water is also equally important. Now when we talk about the different kind of structures that have been built over the period of time, then India houses a huge number of them. The hydraulic structures basically we come about in ancient India. Like if we talk about the 1st century BC, 1st century BC, it's Srinagarapura, that's near Allahabad. It had very complex water harvesting system. Okay, you can imagine the people living in those times understood the importance of water, and we guys living in the 21st century hardly pay any attention to that. So these people, they used to channelize the water of river Ganga, right? They used to channelize the water of river Ganga. So during the time of Chandragupta Maurya, there were many dams and lakes and irrigation systems built. Right, for example, I'll tell you one thing, that there was one Sudarshan lake that was built during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, so that is a very, very famous one. Apart from that, there have been evidences of very complex irrigation works that have been found in Kaling, that's in Odisha, Nagarjuna Konda, Andhra Pradesh, Benur in Karnataka, and Kolhapur in Maharashtra. 11th century, Bhopal Lake was one of the largest artificial lakes of its time that was built, right? And if you talk about in 14th century, Hoskas, that was a tank that was built and constructed by Iltutmish, and the purpose of the tank was to supply water to the nearby Siri Fort area. So the earlier Delhi used to be divided into 7 different cities, right? 7 different cities. So if you talk about Hoskas, if you visit Delhi and if you go to Hoskas area, still this tank, the ruins of this tank is existent, and there is a Hoskas lake nearby. So that's a wonderful system there. The water was stored and supplied to the nearby Siri Fort area. There's an area called a Siri Fort area nearby Hoskas. So Hoskas is pretty much famous. Now it is famous for its vibrant culture and its Hoskas lake. People do go visit and enjoy a particular very good time there. But still, if you are visiting Delhi, do make sure to visit this Hoskas lake. So it was built back in 14th century and 13th centuries, okay, by the Delhi Sultanate people. So this is something that's really a marvel. So people at those times, they understood the importance of water resources. They understood the importance of how to basically go about. They understood the importance of what is the importance of successfully harvesting the rainwater and utilizing it for multiple purposes. So you can see just behind me, there's a beautiful dam. So dams are really beautiful. Dams are nowadays, they serve multi-purposes. As a result, they're also called as multi-purpose projects, right? So when you talk about multi-purpose, that means you are fulfilling more than one purpose of certain particular point, right? For example, the water storage dams is used for irrigation, for agriculture purposes, for hydropower generation. Dams are also now one of the famous tourism spots. People go to watch dams, see the beauty of the dams. So nowadays, dams are basically serving the multi-purposes, right? Okay, so let's have a look over it. So dams were traditionally built to impound the rivers. Impound here basically means control the river flow, right? control the river flow. So dams were basically built to control the river flow and the rainwater that can be used to irrigate the agricultural fields. So that was the major objective of building the dams in earlier times. Now, today dams are built not just for irrigation but for electricity, water supply for domestic usage and industrial usage, flood control, recreation means here basically tourism purposes, okay, inland navigation, that means for transportation purposes with the help of boats and steamers, and for fish breeding, that means there are also reservoirs. What is a reservoir? A lake or a water body that generally gets created at the backside of a dam, right? That's a reservoir. So at times they are also being used as fish breeding grounds where you can breed fish for commercial purposes. So dams nowadays, they find multiple uses. As a result, we do no more call them just dams, we call them as multi-purpose projects. Now, so dams are now referred to as the multi-purpose projects, where many uses of the impounded or the stored water or the water that has been taken out by breaking the flow of the river, that is used, right? For example, in Satluj Beas river, we have the Bhakra Nangal Dam. Bhakra Nangal Dam is partially, it's falling in Punjab and partially it falls in Himachal. So Bhakra Nangal project is built across the Satluj Beas river. So that is being used both. That is having two uses here. Okay, we'll just write down the two uses. What are the two uses? Number one, that is hydropower, for hydropower generation. Okay, and second, it is being used for irrigation. For hydropower generation, and second, it is being used for irrigation. This question is being asked several times in the examination, right? This question is being asked several times in the examination, that what is the Satluj, what are the uses of the Bhakra Nangal project? Or Bhakra Nangal project has twofold uses. What are they? So number one, it is being used for hydropower generation, and the second important one, that it is being used for the irrigational purposes, right? And in the same way, the Hirakud dam that is built across Mahanadi basin, it integrates conservation of water with flood control. So twofold uses of Hirakud dam as well. Number one is conservation of the water, and second is the controlling of flood. Now, basically, what is a dam? If someone asks you how to define a dam, so dam is generally a barrier. Okay, basically, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to stop the natural flow of the river. We are trying to obstruct the natural flow of the river here, and by building a large kind of, you can say, structure that breaks the river flow and stores some water out of it. So that is basically called a dam. So it's a barrier across flowing river that obstructs, directs, or retards the flow, often creating a reservoir. So basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to stop the water flow. As a result, the amount of water collected, it forms a lake, it forms a reservoir or a kind of water body, right? So dam, basically, if you talk about it, majorly refers to the reservoir rather than the structure. So whatever reservoir is being formed, like here, these are the dam gates. So you can see that the river water is being channelized, closed and stored inside this structure, and then when the volume of water stored exceeds, these gates are opened and you can see water flowing in this fashion, right? So basically, dam refers to the reservoir or the lake that is formed rather than the structure. So that is the exact kind of definition you can give for it. So most dams have a section called a spillway or a weir, over which or through which it is intended that water will flow. So you can see this section. So basically this section is a spillway or weir through which the water is flowing, right? Now, based on the structure and materials used, dams are classified as timber dams, embankment dams or masonry dams. Okay, so when you talk about dam classification, we do it on the basis of structure or the material used. So we have in three different like divisions. We have embankment dams, masonry dams. Another classification that we have, that is on the basis of the size, right? So if we talk about that, so basically when you're talking about number one, we divide the dams, we classify the dams on the basis of the material used, right, on the what kind of construction material has been used to build the dam. And second is alternatively as medium, low and high height dams, depending upon the height and the volume of the structure. So basically, right, so there are two classifications. Number one classification on the basis of structure. Okay, one more I'll add here, timber. And second classification is on the basis of size. That is, we have low, medium, and high. Okay. So second classification is on the basis of size and structure, right? So first classification is on the basis of basically whatever structure has been there, whatever kind of material has been used, structure and material used. Okay, structure and material used. And the second classification is on the basis of the kind of size, that it's a very low dam, it's a small dam, it's a medium kind of dam, medium height dam, or it's a very high dam, right? So these are the different kinds of perspectives on which we decide the classifications of dam, right? Next important point. So next important point, bache, ki again we have many subcategories, many subdivisions, but however you don't have to worry about that, because it's okay to know the kind of types we divide it into, and the subtype classification is not very much important as per the examination perspectives are there. They don't ask you in the board exams, okay, but still it's very important to know about that. So multipurpose projects that were launched after independence, okay, they had a very integrated approach. That means they were thought to be the nation's development vehicles, because if we quote the words of a late Prime Minister, the very first Prime Minister of the country, Jawaharlal Nehru, he called them the temples of modern India, right? So Nehru called them the temples of modern India. This question is very much asked in the question papers. Temples of modern India. Okay, so the question is like, who called dams the temples of modern India? Your answer should be Jawaharlal Nehru. And why he called them the temples of modern India? Because he was looking dams as a very good instrument of integrated growth and development, where water resources can be channelized in the best possible manner, right? Overcoming the handicap. So he proudly proclaimed that dams are the temples of modern India. The reason was it would integrate development of agriculture and the village economy with rapid industrialization and growth of urban economy. So basically what he supposed was that it is going to link two different economies, the rural economies as well as the urban economies, right? So the question is, why did Nehru called dams temples of modern India? Okay, so your answer lies in this particular question. Simple. The reason was it will integrate the development of agriculture and the village economy with rapid industrialization and the growth of urban economy. That is why Nehru ji considered dams as the temples of modern India, right? Okay, so I have a question for you. Now the question is very simple. I just want to ask you, just tell me, Hirakud Dam is built across which river? Now your time starts right now. So according to you, I mean very simple. So just tell me one thing, that Hirakud Dam is built across which river? Come on, you have 1 minute to go. Answer fast, answer quick. Come on, answer very quickly. Okay, that's nice. The correct answer, people are giving me the correct answer in the chat. That is, Hirakud is built across the Mahanadi river. Exactly. Super amazing. Super claps for the super champions. Wow. Now, let's talk about what are the disadvantages of creating the dams. Number one, regulating and damming of rivers will definitely affect their natural flow. It's very simple. A river has its own course, it's following its own natural course. Unnecessarily, if you put an artificial barrier in the course of the river, it is definitely going to change its way and move from some other side. But what happens, suppose the side from which the river is flowing, if that is not very favorable, the conditions are not very favorable, it may even lead to the flooding of the nearby areas. So at most, the environment is going to be affected because of this, right? Next important point. Poorer the habitats for the river's aquatic life. So when you are actually obstructing the natural flow, you're also tampering with the kind of aquatic ecosystem it is carrying. So ultimately it poorly impacts the aquatic life, the aquatic ecosystem that the river supports. Third, fragment the rivers or breaks the rivers. Breaking of the rivers make it very difficult for aquatic fauna to migrate. Now aquatic animals the fishes, they use the stream of the river, they use the river current, they use the river flow to move from one place to another depending upon their needs. But when you are obstructing the flow of the river, you are actually making it very difficult for that aquatic life to move from one places to another, right? Next, very important point, dams created on the floodplain submerge the existing vegetation and soil, leading to the decomposition over a period of time. That means, what are the floodplains? Basically, the areas that are very much prone to the flooding, right? So, at the dams built at such regions, they have actually caused the negative impact as they submerge the existing vegetation. Because of them, what happens? Excessive water overflows in the nearby areas, and whatever existing vegetation is there, that gets submerged in water. As a result, when the vegetation gets submerged in water, it starts decaying and decomposing over a period of time. So what is happening here is we are actually facing the loss of natural vegetation cover. Now, so if we talk about few more disadvantages, creating of large dams has been the cause of many environmental movements like Narmada Bachao Andolan, the Tihri Andolan. So many environmentalists have actually come against the construction of dams. The government might be proclaiming it to be super projects, super multi-purpose projects that are going to benefit a huge number of people, but still this is all being built at the cost of environment. And there were very many environmentalists, many local people who have come forward to stage a protest against the building of such kind of multi-purpose projects, right? So many times local people had to give up the land. That's very, very common, especially the tribals. They are the worst affected guys, right? So what happens whenever a dam is being built? Definitely the government needs to acquire huge areas of land. And these areas of land generally are habitats for the people, the local people who are very much dependent upon the forest, where they are very much dependent upon these certain areas for their survival. So the government takes up their land. However, the government promises them to, actually place them in certain safer areas, but government forgets its promises. That's really sad, So basically, these are the guys who get dislocated whenever a kind of construction of dam or any kind of multi-purpose project begins. So that's a real matter of concern, and they have been protesting over the period of time. But the point is, people have turned a deaf ears towards them. Government hardly cares about these people. Like if we talk about Narmada Bachao Andolan. Now, what was Narmada Bachao Andolan? It's Save Narmada. It's a non-governmental organization that mobilized, that encouraged the tribal people, the farmers, the environmentalists, and human rights activists against the building of Sardar Sarovar Dam that was being built across the Narmada River. However, this dam is now operational. Okay, so Sardar Sarovar Dam. So what was their major concern? You can see people, halfway down in water and protesting with the banners and flags. So what was the major concern? It originally focused on the environmental issues that are related to trees that will be submerged under the dam water. Now they were very much concerned that building a dam across Narmada will generally submerge the nearby vegetation. I mean, that means whatever trees are there in the surrounding areas, that will get submerged in the dam water. And recently it has refocused the aim to enable poor citizens, especially the oustees, the displaced people, to get full rehabilitation. Now the problem is, since there are a lot amount of tribal people who have lost their natural homes, their forests, because that is where they used to live. So basically they are focusing for getting homes back for these guys, because otherwise it will be very difficult for them to rehabilitate. So government promises them rehabilitation centers, government promises them better areas to live, but government hardly fulfills this promise, and that is a major concern, the major plight of these guys. Right. So as a result, Narmada Bachao Andolan is actually a non-governmental organization that is focusing on two factors. Number one, the environmental protection of the trees that will be submerged under the dam water. And second is the rehabilitation of these tribal people, these local people who have to forcibly give up their land for the cause of building of multi-purpose projects. Now, what are the other objections that we always come across? Irrigation has also changed the cropping patterns of the different regions, So when the farmers are resorting towards irrigational practices, the multiple irrigational practices, so that has also shifted the kind of cropping. Earlier it used to be limited to just subsistence crop, I mean the crops that are required for consumption purposes, but now with the better methods of irrigation available, more water availability, farmers have now started shifting to more water consuming or water intensive and commercial crops. Because farmers are now looking to earn more profits from their farming and from the crop cultivation. So they are now shifting towards the production of the commercial crops. As a result, the stress over the water resources has increased all the more, right? So this has a great ecological consequence, like the salinization of the soil. For example, Punjab and Haryana are very much good examples of this. Punjab and Haryana, if we talk about, That is, there's a huge scale soil degradation in these states due to over irrigation. So what they have done is the farmers have actually supplied the field with excessive amount of water. As a result, when water keeps standing in the field, it makes the soil more alkaline, more saline, so thereby leading to that, you can say, depletion of the soil quality, right? So at the same time, it has transformed the social landscape, that is increasing the gap between the richer landowner and the poor landless, poor farmer. So basically the guys who have a hand or access to better kind of water resources, they're utilizing those water resources and producing better. As a result, their incomes are increasing, and on the contrary part, the people who do not have good access to the irrigation facilities, they are suffering the worst. So basically this gap is being widened between the rich landowners and the poor farmers. So that is again not a very good sign for the society. Now, the next question arises that how have dams created conflicts? That's an interesting question to answer. Dams have created conflicts between people because different people want different uses out of the dams. You know, different people have different manifold uses out of it. For example, for an industrialist, it will be eyeing upon getting more and more hydropower from the dams, right? For industrialists, hydropower is a major concern because he needs that power to run the machinery and the rest of its objectives. For example, there are farmers who are again in a fix. The Gujarat Sabarmati basin is a very good example of it. Now, at times, farmer also want irrigation, want proper water resources for their crops, and at the same time, the growing urban population also has water needs. So if we take the example of Gujarat, the Sabarmati basin farmers, they have agitated, they were very much angry, and almost it caused a riot. It caused a violent conflict over the higher priority of water supply given in the urban areas, especially during the drought times. Drought times, when there is huge water scarcity, the government has given more priority of supplying the water in the urban areas, but at the same time the farmers are also suffering because it is destroying their crops. The lack of water availability will definitely ruin the crops, and that is a huge amount of loss to the farmers. So farmers are very much angry and agitated with the fact that priority is being given to the urban area. Now, there have been interstate water disputes, and that are very much common, when it comes to sharing the benefits of multipurpose projects. There have been disputes within the two states government, between the two states government, who are fighting over the sharing of the water resources. For example, we'll just take the example of Krishna-Godavari Dispute. Okay, so Krishna-Godavari Dispute is due to the objections raised by Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh government. Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh government have raised objections. Now what has happened, that the Koyna Dam, the water of the Koyna Dam is being diverted more by the Maharashtra government, right? Very, very simple. So it's regarding the diversion of more water at Koyna by the Maharashtra government for a multi-purpose project. So basically Maharashtra is trying to access more of the water resources. As a result, what is happening? Because due to this, the rivers that are flowing to Karnataka and Andhra, they will have a reduced amount of downstream, reduced amounts of water, volume water, right? So as a result, definitely it is going to impact the agriculture and industry that are dependent over two rivers. So here what is happening, more of the water is being diverted by Maharashtra government. As a result, Andhra and Karnataka are facing the water scarcity here. So definitely if they don't have good amount of water volume in the rivers, how are they going to supply to the agriculture part in the industries? So there is a huge fight going on between these three governments. Now, what are the other reasons why the multi-purpose projects have been under scrutiny? That's a very nice question. So when this question comes, you have to write all these kinds of points, right? So why they have been under objections or question. So most of the objections to the projects arose due to the failure to achieve the purpose for what they were built. Like for example, they were built to control the floods, but actually they have caused the floods. So most of the dams were constructed to control floods, but they have actually caused the floods. Okay, and they have also caused huge amount of soil erosion. When water with huge quantities flowing through a certain area, definitely it's going to remove the topsoil cover. As a result, that leads to soil erosion. Excessive use of water has resulted in earthquakes, huge amount of dams being built. Waterborne diseases are there when the dam water floods the nearby areas. It actually leads to the water being very much disrupted, water quality being very much disrupted, and the flood water always carries with it a huge amount of pests, snakes, the different kinds of bacteria and germs that ultimately leads to the waterborne diseases. So we can see that dams, instead of serving a very good purpose, have also caused huge scale, huge amount of, you can say that destruction or devastation, right? So it's very important to check out, to make the dams, but to ensure that the local people are getting affected positively with it and not facing the negative impacts of a dam, right? So these are some of the things that we need to talk about. Let's talk about a very important and very amazing concept, that is rainwater harvesting. So what is basically rainwater harvesting? Rainwater harvesting is a simple term that is used to define the collection of the rainwater and using it for multiple purpose, right? So what we do is we very intelligently collect the rainwater, channelize it to some tank or a storage space, and then we can use it for multiple purpose. So this is what is, in very simple terms, rainwater harvesting, right? So we have multiple techniques when we talk about rainwater harvesting. For example, these are the inundation channels where the flood water is being diverted for agriculture purpose. Okay. Then we have gulls in Himalayas. Then we have joharts in Rajasthan. So basically there are the structures built where the rainwater is allowed to collect. As a result, the rainwater, the collected rainwater, it makes the soil more soft, more smooth, more fertile. So these kinds of structures are the different kinds of rainwater harvesting structures that are practiced in different states, right? Let's get to know about them each one by one. In hilly and mountainous regions, people have built diversion channels like the gulls or kulls of the western Himalayas for agriculture. So what they do is, basically you can see that these are the kind of channels. So whatever rainwater or whatever the water from the nearby sources, it gets collected in certain areas, and then it is through proper channelization, it is transferred to the fields. So such structures in the western Himalayas are called kulls or gulls. Then rooftop rainwater harvesting is very much practiced in Rajasthan to store basically the water that is required for drinking purposes. In floodplains of Bengal, floodplains means the areas where the flood water gets accumulated, very much flooded areas, people have developed inundation channels to irrigate their fields. These are the inundation channels. What they have done is, they have diverted the flood water towards the field so that they can be irrigated and the flood water can be utilized in a better manner, right? Now, in arid and semi-arid areas, that means in completely dry and partially dry areas, agricultural fields are converted into rain-fed storage. That means these fields on which agriculture is done, it is, it is being converted into rain-fed storage. That means whenever the rainfall is happening, that rainwater gets accumulated in these fields, makes the soil fertile and easy for the farmer to do farming over it. So that allowed the water to stand and moisten the soil, like khadins in Jaisalmer and joharts in other parts of Rajasthan. So these type of structures are called khadins in Jaisalmer and joharts in the rest parts of Rajasthan, right? So these are the different rainwater harvesting mechanisms that have been taken up by people. Okay, let's talk about another amazing aspect from Rajasthan itself, another amazing rainwater harvesting from Rajasthan itself. That is in the semi-arid. Semi-arid means partially dry areas, and arid means completely dry regions of Rajasthan, especially in Bikaner, Falodi and Barmer. All the houses have underground tanks that are called tankas. So basically this is a house. So this house has an underground tank built, this underground tank, and in here the rainwater is stored. This tank is called as tankas in Rajasthan. Okay, now the tanks could be as large as a big room. For example, a house in Falodi had a tank that was 6.1 meters deep. That's a good amount of depth. 4.27 meters long and 2.44 meters wide. That's a huge deep tank, right? So the tankas are a part of well-developed rainwater harvesting system that are built inside the main house or the courtyard. So basically what they do is, from the roofs, they have sloping roofs. So sloping roofs, when the roofs are slanting, the water will flow towards in a down manner, right? And that rainwater gets collected in a pipe, and that pipe is directly poured into these tankas, and the rainwater is stored in these large tanks, right? So rain falling on the rooftops will travel down the pipe and stored in these underground tanks. The first spell of rain is not collected because it contains lots of impurities. After that, whatever rain showers are there, they are completely collected in these tanks. At times, people also have built rooms adjacent to these tankas in Rajasthan because this helps them to remain cool during the exorbitant heat. the kind of heat that Rajasthan, especially Jaisalmer and around the area faces, that's really oppressive, right? The temperatures that touch 50 degrees Celsius there. So it's very cooling and very soothing to build, rooms just adjacent to these tankas, because the water inside the tanka keeps the temperature of the room pretty cool and maintained. So the rainwater be stored in tankas and till next rainfall, making it extremely good source of drinking when all the resources have dried out. So rainwater in Rajasthan is called as Palar Pani. Rainwater is called as Palar Pani in Rajasthan. Palar Pani in Rajasthan. Okay. That's an important point to note. This is a very important question that is often asked, that what is rainwater in Rajasthan called as? It is called as Palar Pani. Now, it's considered the purest form of natural water. Many houses have constructed underground rooms adjoining the tankas to beat the summer heat, right? So that is called as a quick ninja technique, right? Okay. So let me ask you one more question. Johards are commonly found in which place of Rajasthan? Johards is commonly found in Rajasthan. Khadins are place called Khadins are generally found in which part of Rajasthan? Come on. I'm just switching my question. The Khadins are usually found in which parts of Rajasthan? Come on. Comment section. Show your talent in the comment section. Show some talent. I know that this Ignite batch got some talent. That's some real sheer talent. Come on. Just show it in the comment box. Khadins. Where do we call it as Khadins? Come on, very fast. Okay. So in Western Rajasthan, however, the practice of rooftop rainwater harvesting is on the decline, as plenty of water is available due to Rajasthan Canal. So what is happening? Unfortunately, the practice of rooftop rainwater harvesting in western parts of Rajasthan is declining due to availability of good amount of water by the construction of Rajasthan Canal, right? Through some houses still maintain the tankas because they do not like the taste of the tap water. So they still maintain those tankas. In many parts of rural and urban India, the rooftop rainwater harvesting is successfully practiced out. Tamil Nadu was the first state to make rooftop rainwater harvesting compulsory. Okay. So this is something really important to note, because this question has been asked several times in the examinations, right? Now, this story of Gendathur is an amazing story that talks about concentrated efforts. So when you do combined efforts, when you do joint efforts, they'll always yield you results. The Gendathur is a very good example of that. So that's a village in Karnataka, right? That's a very remote backward village in Mysuru, Karnataka. Here the villagers have installed rooftop rainwater harvesting systems. Now, nearly 200 households have installed this system, and the village has earned a very good achievement of being very rich in rainwater, right? Now, Gendathur receives an annual rainfall of 1000 millimeters, and 80% of this water is collected very efficiently, okay? And about 10 fillings, every house can collect and use about 50,000 liters of water annually. You can imagine that 10 times they collect this water, and with the help of that, 50,000 of liters of water is available for every house and on an annual basis. From 20 houses, the net amount of rainwater that is harvested annually is, you can imagine, 1 lakh liters. So from 20 houses itself, the 1 lakh liters of rainwater is harvested on an yearly basis. Now you can calculate how many 200 households must be doing. So out of the total rainfall, 80% of the rainfall they are able to recharge and harvest. That's an amazing story. With this, we come to one more amazing story from Meghalaya, that is the bamboo drip irrigation. That is again an amazing practice that is followed in Meghalaya. That is, if we talk about Meghalaya, there is a 200-year-old system of tapping the stream and the spring water, whatever the kind of water they are finding in the nearby rivers, nearby streams, they are just tapping that water by using bamboo pipes. About 80-20 liters of water enters the bamboo pipe system. It gets transported over hundreds of meters, and finally it's reduced to 20 to 80 drops. For example, you can see these kinds of bamboo pipes. The water flows through these bamboo pipes, and finally it's poured over the roots of the plants drop by drop as per the requirement. So first picture, you can see that bamboo pipes are used to divert the perennial. Perennial means water is available in these water sources throughout the year. Springs on the hilltops to lower reaches by gravity, simple arrangement. So gravity, under the influence of gravity, the water will start flowing. Wherever there are roads, they have built over the head kind of platforms. You can see like this. If the pipe passes a road, they are taken high above the land. So the channel sections made of bamboo divert water to the plant site where it is distributed into branches, right? So basically these kinds of bamboo pipes are laid through which the water is transported, and whenever there is a like road passing by, so basically these structures are taken at a certain height. Now if you see that these kinds of channels are directly pouring, so this is a plant. So at the end, what is going to happen, these kinds of bamboo channels, they are directly going to pour the water drop by drop directly at the roots of the plant. So in this way, what happens, water is not wasted. Even the plants are getting the necessary amount of water, and this is a very good way of transporting water over long distances. It's a 200-year-old system. So reduced channel sections and diversion units are used at the last stage, and the last channel finally drops the water to the roots of the plant. So basically it's what is happening, we are using bamboo sticks, and those bamboo sticks, they have a channel of bamboo sticks. Lots and lots of bamboos are being used because bamboos are hollow, right? So what we are doing is we are connecting it with a nearby water resource. So from that, the water is flowing into those bamboo sticks under the influence of gravity. They have arranged it in certain way. There are highs and lows, and then finally they drop those waters part by part in the just at the roots of the plant. So as a result, what happens, a lot of water is saved. So it was a small and amazing and cute chapter. The journey, it went on like, it was real fast one, and finally we have come to the end of the topic. Now, what are the important takes from this entire discussion that we had today? Number one, we are talking about water as a resource, in which we talk about two major aspects. Number one, the qualitative aspect. Second is the quantitative aspect. That means water should be present in both quality and quantity, then it can work as a resource. Then we saw that dams have been very useful for certain purposes, but at the same time, dams have certain disadvantages as well. Nowadays, we call them as multi-purpose projects because they serve a huge number of different kinds of things. Like they are used for tourism purpose, they are used for recreational purposes, they are used for farming, irrigation and all. They are used for, fishing grounds, they are used for hydropower production. So there are multiple uses of the dams. Then we saw that there have been conflicts that have arisen due to construction of dams. So ultimately we saw the rainwater harvesting and its importance. That it's really, really very important to harvest the rainwater and to recharge the rainwater, because we are slowly getting pushed towards extreme water scarcity, right? So with this note, let's take a pledge to save water by small efforts that we can do. We always know that we can't make big efforts, happen just one single day. So obviously Rome was also not built in a day. Rome took years to build. That's why it's called Rome. It's so magnificent. And in fact, everything takes perfect amount of time to build, So that's why it's really very, very important to give our time to make our efforts. Our small efforts can really save, huge amounts of water, and after all, we need water to survive. Still now we haven't done any friendship with aliens there over Mars or any other planet. So we have this beautiful planet Earth. It's really important to save this beautiful planet Earth. Let's take a pledge to save water, to do things that are in favor of environmental protection. Okay, so on this note, I'm taking your leave, and I'm gonna meet you in the next amazing discussion. Till then, stay happy, stay smiling, and stay tuned with PW. Bye bye.